You are listening to The Growth Signal. My name is Alyssa Nolte,
And I am Rick Denton.
and we're going to get right into it. Rick, tell us what your hot take.
My hot take is so oftentimes in the customer experience where we talk about the companies, we talk about they need to do this better, they need to improve this, all that sort of thing. My hot take is until customers, and by customers, I'm looking right at me, I'm looking right at you, until we actually vote with our wallet and stop giving money to companies that give us crap service, nothing is going to change. You can have the best organization out there, you can have the fanciest CX titles, but unless we vote with our wallets, nothing's going to change, and it's our fault.
I love this hot take. I'm so excited to have this conversation. And I love it too when someone comes on with like a truly spicy hot take, right? Like the customer is not always right because in this case, they are not giving companies what they need to hear, right? Like when we behave badly, we get what we deserve in a way. And what you tolerate is what you will get.
Yeah.
I love this idea.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it is this idea of sometimes we are forced to spend our dollars because there are no other choices. Okay, I get that. Now let's extract that from the conversation. If you want to bitch about airlines, well, then move your dollars to the airline. There are some, I promise there are, that are actually at least leaning towards the customer. Stop giving your dollars to the ones that aren't. And I will tell you right now, as someone who lives in a fortress city with 2 hub airlines, I'm kind of guilty of this because I'm like, well, okay, I want to do a nonstop flight. It's okay if they treat me like crap or cram me in like a sardine. I'm not voting with my wallet, so I need to stop whining about the experience that I get on that airline unless I fire that airline.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, no matter like what product you're really talking about, the idea that you don't have choices is like so 1990s because we do have choices these days. There is almost any alternative to anything that you are doing, right?
Right,
Don't like
right.
the way that airlines are treating you? There's this cool thing I'd like to tell you about called cars. And like you can go somewhere in your car and it's totally fine, right? But I'm also thinking about like something a little simpler, like all the software that's out there.
Oh,
I have a
geez.
friend who he has a retail company where people can come and do like sim racing, like with cars.
Okay.
And it's really cool. And it's this very cool facility. He did not like any of the software that was out there for scheduling time for to reserve a sim race rig. I'm gonna use all the wrong words. He's gonna get on me about this later. But to use a sim race, so he used Google's anti-gravity, I think is what it is, to code a plugin for his website, and he
Mhm.
used Claude and AI to put together a custom scheduling solution that fit his need and fit for purpose. It took him a little bit of time. He had to figure out like how to do it. He had to ask other people who had done stuff like this before. But now he has a solution that he
Mhm.
owns wholly and he doesn't have to say, "Hey, I don't wanna pay for your crappy solution. I will just go build my own."
It is interesting how, and you're talking about something that feels to those of us that aren't like, I'm not in the hardcore development world. Heck, I haven't coded since probably 1998. It does feel like that access to we can create whatever product we want by just simply prompting our way into it is a very recent arrival.
Yeah.
And it is so, and what I love about something that's recent like that, that means that today is the worst it will ever be. So if
Yeah.
your friend was able to do that successfully, now fast forward in our brains to 6 months from now, a year from now, and beyond, it's really going to be something that, well, actually, if I'm a SaaS company, I'm a little scared, right? Because I
Yeah.
I I no longer can develop a product that is available to the masses because the masses are made up of individuals of one, and that one will say, "I want it this way, and I'm gonna build it the way that I want to."
Yeah, I think that we are on the precipice of a real reckoning, exactly to your point of, like, if you are not going to deliver a truly customer-centric experience, if you are
Mhm.
not going to bring your customer to the table and give them a vote in the same way that you have given your CFO a vote and your product leader a vote and your CEO a vote, when all of those decisions happen, if you're not giving your customer a vote at the table, you are going to find out that your customer is going to find a new table.
If you know the old adage, if you don't vote, don't complain, which clearly does not exist because what do we have, 7% voting in municipal elections and everybody bitches about them?
Yeah.
But I go back to the customer in the example that you're saying. Well, if you want a seat at the table, then pick up your wallet and say, "I'm not gonna spend with you anymore." That is your vote. You have to be willing to walk out of the car dealership. You have to be willing not to book. How many times have you heard people say, I am never staying there again? And then you hear that they go back there a month later or the next year. Be committed to your complaints.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to continue.
Well, like, look at we talked about airlines earlier, but, like, look at Southwest. They made all these changes. Everyone is complaining about, like, "Oh, it's not, no 2 free bags, and now we're having to do overhead storage and all of these things." And yet I'm like, "But you're still showing me video of you on a Southwest flight, mad
Look
that
how
you're in the
miserable
middle
this
seat."
is while I'm on it.
Right,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
there's so if Southwest is not the best option for you anymore because you liked the way that they were doing things before, and yet you still book on Southwest, what lesson are you giving to Southwest,
Mhm.
right? And it's almost like the way that I work with my kids. I have a 7 and a 10-year-old, and they are very strong personalities, and I know that, you have kids, but, like, if I tell my 7-year-old, like, "Okay, if you have a bad attitude, then I'm gonna take away your tablet." We had this conversation this morning. I'm like, "You cannot come downstairs before school starts and play with your tablet if you're not gonna get dressed, put on your shoes, eat your breakfast, and all that stuff."
Right.
But if I don't take away the tablet, then what am I
Yeah.
teaching her? That my threats are empty.
That is 100% true, and now my kids are 23 and 21 at this point, so, threats are don't exist anymore, right? I'm happily ensconced in the empty nest world. My wife and I love this phase of life. Those empty threat the weakness of an empty threat is so true. I'll tell a story about me when it comes to airlines. I was a primary we'll name and shame here. I mentioned the 2, hubs. I'm in the DFW area, so it's
Yeah.
American, it's Southwest. I was a very loyal American flyer for decades,
Yep.
and I fired them from my domestic business because their boarding process had turned into just utter chaos. Yeah, groups 1 to 8. However, when you call group 1, 1,000, 1,000, group 2, 1,000, 1,000.
Yeah.
Suddenly all 8 groups are there in line together, and I gave up and went to Southwest for my domestic business. And I stayed with Southwest. The recent changes for the first time have me starting to look back at American. And guess what? By using my wallet, I've rediscovered, well, actually, American's gotten a little better about their boarding process. I'm not here to celebrate them from a customer experience perspective. They still have a lot of
Right.
weaknesses, but that specific thing that caused me to fire them is no longer the same issue that it once was for where I am traveling. So I am starting to move more of my business back to them. I am voting with my wallet. Now, I will say that my wallet still stays with Southwest when it comes to they have found certain elements of the experience that hook me in. I've got the companion pass. Therefore,
Mhm.
it's essentially a 50% discount when my wife and I travel together. So they have found if you look at customer experience as the whole suite of things, they can treat me badly. I can disagree with the boarding process. I can not like the fact that I can't get my bags in the overhead or whatever that looks like. But because of this one feature, I'm voting with my wallet. And guess what? They're going to take that as a signal of great, the changes we made are working. He and all the thousands of others of he's and she's that are now on the flights with Southwest, that's a vote telling Southwest that the changes they made, all right, cool. Customer likes it. We're going to keep going.
Or at the very least, that the changes that they made are sacrifices that we're willing to accept, right?
There, yes.
And the difference between, like, actively choosing to accept this
Right.
versus passively complaining about it.
Yeah, and I think and I'm not here to say that the social media voice or something that really kind of captures heck, do you remember the song United Breaks Guitars? I still remember that, and it's like a decade old. This dude had his guitar broken,
Yeah.
recorded a song, was on YouTube, became viral. It's a temporary embarrassment blip for the airline, and it's real. It is a PR sort of embarrassment when a social media thing flares up for them. I don't think it actually moves the needle. I don't
No.
think it changes behavior quite like the wallet.
Right, and well, I mean, at the end of the day, for anything that you want to have happen, whether you're talking about voting with your wallet for what the products that you're buying, the companies that you're supporting, or if we're gonna go all the way down to the politicians, money
Mhm.
makes the world go around,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And you are voting with your wallet no matter where you're at. But I think it has to be like an active decision
Mhm.
then if you're going to do that because there's a lot of things that different providers give me that I am willing to accept, a mild inconvenience because I get a certain benefit somewhere else. And so we have to figure out as consumers, what are we willing to accept? And if you're not willing to accept it, then move on,
Yeah.
right? But to your point, like there is an evolution of moving back because I once had a provider, you had American Airlines. it worked for you until it didn't. You went to Southwest. Southwest, made some decisions, and now you're open to looking at American again because maybe they have evolved in the same way that you have.
Yeah, that's I love the evolution element of that as I have started to, well, let's just say the body doesn't feel quite as comfortable in certain seats as it once did. I found myself finding an actual ROI in premium cabin products. Well, as of yet, Southwest doesn't offer premium cabin products, and so that's got me looking at back at American. But what a premium cabin product also offers is, well, now I don't really care that much. If I'm going to somewhere overseas, I don't know that I care that much whether okay, I got to stop at Atlanta or I got to stop in Houston. That's not as big a deal as it is on a domestic connection. And so now actually the whole suite of airlines is available to me. And that I think what I'm getting at is that loyalty is perhaps a little overstated. I think warmth and happiness and that kind of stuff, the softer stuff that we talk about in the CX world, I don't think it's nearly as important as we inside the CX world think that it actually is. I think when it comes down to it, each individual choice, there'll be some loyalty, but most individual choices are going to be a very tactical, transactional, what's better for me at this moment purchase.
Do you think though that that is a byproduct of the way that companies have changed their approach to loyalty, right? Because I think
Mhm.
loyalty might just be a relic of a bygone era. And because companies stopped introducing, these amazing loyalty rewards or loyalty programs or points or reasons to stay with them, and they started over time chipping away at those, that this is more of like a counterbalance reaction from the market, right? You're
Love it.
not going to be loyal to me. You haven't been for over a decade. I have a million options. I am going to vote with my wallet. And, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't shop at, this one store, and that I'm going to miss out on my points that get me
Yeah.
nothing, a keychain, right?
That is a really great point that you're introducing this because I think the word loyalty in the context of consumer and brand really got introduced actually by American Airlines when they created their Advantage, American Airlines Advantage program back in the 80s, I think it was.
Mhm.
And they were one of the, if not the, I think they were the first to create that. And what that was is basically do your time with us and we will give you reward. And over time, American and every other airline found more and more ways for you to earn those points. But then they started restricting how you actually got the reward for those points. And there's a bit of a lag in the consumer's mind that we didn't quite pick up on it right away. But who cares if I'm a 2 million miler with an airline if I never see that upgrade that they promised? Who cares if I have miles out the wazoo, but I can't ever get a reasonably priced for miles flight overseas? So, as the reward part of loyalty started to fall short, the consumer is beginning to wake up and realize there is no such thing as loyalty in this area. I need to return back to what is the right choice for me at this time. I tell you, back when I was in the consulting days, there are so many flights that I took that I purposely was maximizing my length of flight.
Yeah.
Instead of going Boston to DFW, sometimes I'd go Providence to Chicago to DFW. Why? Because I got more miles. Well, that's ridiculous unless there's a benefit for those miles. There is no longer a benefit for those miles. So why on earth would I choose to be inconvenienced under the guise of air quote here loyalty?
My aunt, I remember distinctly, she's like, "Oh, I gotta fly to Minneapolis this weekend." I'm like, "Why?" And she's like, "Well, I gotta I need one more flight to keep my status on United." And I was like,
Oh
"This is
yeah.
stupid. Why are we doing this?" But then, like,
Ah, the
my
miles
dad
run.
has lifetime gold status on American, million miler status or whatever, because he worked for HP. They had to
Hmm.
fly through Dallas, and he was going to Australia and Argentina a lot for work. So he
Hmm.
was racking up miles for that reason. But he will fly Allegiant now, even though
Oh,
he has permanent gold status on American, because we live in Iowa and there's almost no
yeah,
direct flights here. Allegiant has direct flights to a bunch of
yeah.
different places. And so for him, a direct flight is more important than the perks he gets on his million miler status
See,
on
that's
American.
exactly right. That's I'm the lifetime platinum, and yet I told you I fired the company that I have lifetime platinum on
Yep.
because my individual experiences were better to go with the other airline.
So if we're gonna like have this conversation, and and I'm a big believer in like, okay, I love to you know, to read people to filth and be like, okay, here's all the things you're doing wrong. But we also got to have a conversation about like, what does it look like to do this right? Is this just the way that it is? And we as companies and leaders of companies have to accept that people are going to vote with their wallet. So we have to race to the bottom to produce the best experience or the lowest price or all of that. Or is this a turnaround? Can we actually start to build loyalty with our customers and get back that bygone era of giving great experiences and producing loyal customers?
There's a there's an I'm not going to remember it exactly. So I was a business process guy before I became a CX guy, and again, kind of the two worlds are the same. Business process is inside out, customer experience is outside in. And there was the concept, and I'm not going to remember the Japanese term, but basically you looked for the non-value add activities. And what that was defined as was, would the customer knowingly pay a premium for this step in the process?
Mm.
Is this something the customer values that they would contribute their wallet to? And I think that's the mentality that we need to take as companies, as CX leaders, as customer leaders, or just as company leaders, to be thinking, is what I'm doing something the customer would be willing to pay for? And that might mean a better experience. It might be expanding the leg room in a flight. It might be our brains always go to hospitality, but there's the software examples, all of that. What is the experience the customer is willing to pay for, and use that to help define what is the experience that we want to create for our customers. I think too often and I don't know, maybe it's because a lot of us came into this world that we actually had kind hearts. I don't know. Maybe there's too much of us that are just too kind and not as financially focused in the CX world of we wanted to do things that felt right, that were better, the heart of the customer, all those sorts of things. In a capitalist economy, in a for-profit business, it really comes down to, company, will the customer pay for that experience that you're providing? If they aren't, then you're really kind of throwing away some dollars.
Yeah, I part of me disagrees with that. Maybe I am just too like kind-hearted because like one of the things is I've had clients for like 10 to 15 years and they could hire much more prestigious people who do what we do and they could hire probably cheaper people. They could hire someone internal to be, be their
Mhm,
customer researcher solution. And I finally asked someone, why do you keep hiring us? It's been 15 years. You're a big name company. You could have anybody.
mhm,
And they said, there's a couple of things that we like about you. One, we like that you guys always tell the truth,
mhm,
and we don't ever have to wonder if there's a hidden agenda behind the thing that you're trying to tell us. And two, you always give us really useful
mhm.
information. Right? Those aren't necessarily tangible things that I can say like, "Oh, would the customer pay for us to tell them the truth?" Would they? Maybe, or is that a base expectation? I think that the other thing though is sometimes there are things that the customer is willing to pay for that we should give them because it makes their long-term experience better, and I'll give you an example. We purchased a software, it's a highly technical software, and they said, "Okay, we're gonna charge you an extra $4,000 for our onboarding services. This is where we're going to teach you how to use the software and do all of these things." And we said, "Nah, we'll figure it out." And now we're on calls with support every single week, bugging their support team, bugging our CSM, bugging all of these people because we weren't willing to pay for the training, whereas they could have probably saved money if they would have just let us have that training.
Yeah, okay, so that actually I love that. First of all, let me say that I probably am just feeling a little cynical. You're like,
That's
"Hey,
fair. That's
I
fair.
kinda disagree with you, Rick." Well, after decades of looking at this world, I've gotten a little cynical about things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When we're talking in the world of hot takes, there is nothing in life that is truly as binary as one side or the other. It's usually in between. But I'll take some of the examples that you're describing there. I think you are showing, or your clients are showing, that they are willing to pay for the truth because it's sort of
Fair.
a circular argument. They are showing that they're willing to pay for the truth because they are paying for the truth. Well, that proves that so it's a bit circular. In your example, it's interesting in that you, the customer, chose not to do the $4,000 spend. And now you, the customer, are experiencing this, but you haven't voted with your wallet to go another direction. So I guess in essence, you are saying it's still okay to me that I save those $4,000. The twist on that, though, is I wonder if the company has overspent $4,000 and then it becomes less about what was the customer willing to spend,
Yeah.
but just the pure economics of, if we give this away for free, then we will not spend. downstream.
Right. I didn't see value in it in using my
Mhm.
wallet to pay for it, but now I am draining operational resources on one-off responses that could have probably been covered if I would have just done the software, but I didn't see or the training, but I didn't see value in it. And,
Yeah.
we actually are looking at their competitor. We're just locked in for a year, so we've got 8 months to go look
See?
at the other one. So we're just kinda, like, stuck, but we're not stuck because we wanna be here. We're just stuck in a contract for a year, and
Well,
I guess we'll bide our time.
yeah, and that's true. I mean, I say vote with our wallets. When we're talking about transactions like flights and stuff, of course, I
Yeah.
c I couldn't walk away from a transcription service that I had purchased that it was a year's worth of service. Well, at a certain point, it was no longer worth it to me. I went and it had 6 months to go. I get that, but it was my mind had voted with my wallet, and it sounds like y'all's minds are starting to vote. Your minds are starting to vote with your wallet? Either way, you're thinking about buying something new.
But then I'm also having the same thought of like, okay, the software does 80% of what I would like it to do. Do I speak up? And I say, these are the things that would
Yeah.
make this a 20% worth saving. We've got 8 more months on this contract with you. We are like there is something there
Uh-huh.
in me. And maybe that's because I'm a CX customer research nerd who's like, you could keep me, but here's what I need from you. And you know, am I willing to take that time and energy as a customer, which is effectively a form of currency,
It is. Mhm.
right? My energy and my attention is currency in as much as my cash is. Am I willing to spend that currency on trying to move this in a direction that serves my needs? And we're still not sure if that's where we wanna spend our attention or if we wanna go see if the grass is greener elsewhere.
Yeah. It's so tempting to look elsewhere when you've been disappointed.
When we're thinking about, the people that we need to pay attention to, that we need to look to, the people that you know or aspire to know, who else is out there? Who else can open our minds and open our eyes?
Okay. So it would be so tempting for me to tell you all the great CX people that I know out there, or the operational people that I know out there, or even the big name inspirational names that are out there. No. You know what I'm gonna because we were talking about airlines. I'm gonna tell you there's a podcast that I think everybody who cares a lick about flying, and if you kind of want to know what your flight attendants are actually thinking,
Oh my god, I am already so desperate to know what this is.
you need to go listen to Two Guys on a Plane. We had the opportunity to meet Rich is one of the 2 guys. It's him and his husband. They are flight attendants for different airlines. We met Rich at a Podfest. We being not the royal we, my wife Clancy and I, we met Rich at a podcasting conference. Loved him, loved his personality, loved everything we met about. And then as we got to know his podcast and I've started listening to it, oh my gosh, it's so much fun to hear what flight attendants are really thinking about us, what flight attendants are actually experiencing. And sometimes it gets kind of wonky, like what was flight attendant training and orientation like? Well, I kind of interested
I
in that.
kinda wanna know.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, Two Guys on a Plane, fantastic podcast, one that I would highly recommend.
Okay, that is immediately going into my listening queue. As soon as you said what it was, I was like, "Yep, that's that's a podcast for me because 'cause I'm so excited about that." And if someone is really connecting with you, they wanna learn more, they wanna get more of Rick, where can they find you online?
Well, most visible online presence certainly LinkedIn, right? That's where you'll find me. The more visible content that's taking place right now is my wife Clancy and I have a podcast called The Loud Quiet Empty Nest Living, and that can be found at theloudquiet.com. We recently released a book here in early 2026 called The Loud Quiet. Shocker. And it is really a kind of a memoir, little tales, a little bit of instruction, kind of like this conversation that you and I are having here, Alyssa, just a sit down with a glass of wine type book about what that first year of empty nesting was like for us and what it can be for others. We really want folks not just to survive the empty nest, we want them to thrive in the empty nest. And that's the whole point of the loud quiet.
Well, and I think that that's a really important conversation because the books that I'm getting shoved at, because I'm in the thick of it, right, with a 7 and 10-year-old, the books that I'm getting, there's a million books and podcasts and conversations about how to survive, what it means to be in the thick of parenting, and there's, an entire industry around selling new moms information on how to be a new mom. So I think it's important to recognize that when your kids leave the nest, that is, you're a whole new person, whether
Oh my
you
gosh.
recognize it or not.
You have encapsulated in those sentences there the primary driver as to why Clancy looked at me after one night where she looked at me and said, "What if I don't like us when our youngest daughter, leaves?" That's a scary question to hear as a married couple. And it was a lot of she looked around and couldn't find information about the empty nest life, what other than woe is me type stuff, and we're not woe is me kind of people. So
Yeah.
she's the one who said, let's start a podcast. And I love the idea. She's been the muse behind it. It's been a fantastic ride for us over these just shy of 3 years.
Well, I am looking forward to hearing what our audience thinks about that. I am not quite at the point where I'm
Use it as
ready to
encouragement.
think
You'll
about
get
it,
there, I
but I
promise.
am. My husband and I already have plans of like, okay, someday we're gonna we're gonna travel. We're gonna do all the things. My travel is not going to include a dance competition or a baseball tournament. Most of me,
Hallelujah.
it's going to be a whole vacation. Rick, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show. I really think this is an important conversation. I love the idea of we as consumers need to vote with our wallets and let companies know that we are not getting the customer experience that they think they're giving us. And also the flip side of companies need to look up from the spreadsheets, step away from the stand-ups, leave the boardroom, and understand what their customers are doing, saying, and voting with their wallets. Thank you for this conversation. I loved learning from you today.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Alyssa. This was a blast.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. There are millions of podcasts out there, and something like 70,000 new episodes are released every single day. It's not lost on me how lucky I am to have such an incredible community who show up and support this show. To be a guest or nominate someone who should join me on the pod, head to alyssanolte.com. And if you're looking for ad-free episodes, you can join me on Substack. I post all new episodes of my podcasts and share appearances on other people's shows, plus bonus content and updates on what I'm working on. Search Alyssa Likes to Talk or tap the link in the show notes.